Oh, my friends, I do not want to get bogged down here tonight, but I want to just try to go through this as quickly as I can. I told you that every single word that I am going to tell you is taken from this book right here, that is the New Bible for the religious organizations in America, and from the letters and the interrogatories that have been sent to our church from the Internal Revenue Service. There's no doubt in my mind that there is a concerted effort on the part of this government using the Internal Revenue Service and other agencies of the government. And many of you small businessmen especially know what I'm talking about. There's absolutely no question in my mind that there is a concerted effort to silence all dissent to the New World Order by muzzling the preachers of America. Isaiah said that, speaking of the preachers of his day, that they're all dumb dogs. They cannot bark. They're dumb dogs. They cannot bark. You know what? The devil is so smart. When this whole tax exemption began starting back in the 30s on into the 40s, so that it got in high gear about the time this church started in 1950. The Internal Revenue Service said to the pastors, "We have some goodies for you. You can get a housing allowance. You can get automobile allowances. We have these nice goodies for you." And the preachers lined up to drink at the trough. And if one preacher in America cried out against this wickedness, I don't know who it was. I've checked very carefully. I've gone back into the documents, and even the fundamental preachers, some of the greatest men of God that ever lived on this earth, ran to the trough, and they sold their soul, and they sold the future of the church in America. And I want to tell you something. The Constitution of the United States of America says that there shall be no titles of nobility. Now everybody wants to be a preacher. Everybody wants to be a member of the clergy. Do you know what that doctrine is? Revelation chapter 2, Revelation chapter 3. That's the doctrine of the Nicolaitans, and God said, "I hate the doctrine of the Nicolaitans." At the same time that the preachers were preaching the priesthood of the believer, they were participating in the creation of a noble class, and they began to be a part of a group that has always been a part of government, and those are the palace prophets, the palace preachers, the palace priests. Who did President George Bush have with him when he came before the American people to tell them that he was getting ready to send our troops into Desert Storm? Why, the Dr. Reverend Billy Graham was standing by him. Why, he says, "We've just come out of a prayer meeting. We've been praying about this matter." And after all, wouldn't that give credence to what he was trying to do if the palace preacher, who somehow now the preachers have become Judas goats. Do you know what a Judas goat is? In the packing house, when they want to get the sheep to go down the chute to the slaughter, they get a goat, and the goat leads them. And the goat goes on through, and the goat is not touched. And then the knife falls upon the sheep right behind him. My friends, let me tell you something tonight. We sold out mighty cheap. I'm not jumping on anybody else. I participated in it. I did it ignorantly. What in the world? Why in the world? I didn't have the slightest idea in the world that I was doing anything wrong until God opened my eyes in Covington, Georgia in 1983 on my knees, and I had to settle the matter that even though it is a legal issue, it's not a legal issue. In essence, it is a spiritual issue. And I said it'll be the last time that I ever fill out a 1040 form and take the money that God's people give me to preach the gospel of Christ, share with others, and use it to finance every single type of wickedness on the face of this earth. And they can do whatever they want to do to me, but by the grace of God, I'll never do it again. And I've never done it again, and I've kept my promise to God. 30 ways that the IRS is trying to control the churches of America. I have the clippings right here. We're not going to take time to go through all of these clippings, but I have every one of them here. Anybody that would like to see them, you're welcome to look at them. The church, the state church, the IRS-controlled church, the religious organization in America must have a distinct legal existence. You say, well, what is that? You have to be incorporated according to publication. It's either 518 or 515 the IRS puts out. In other words, for a church to qualify as a religious organization, in other words, for a church to be a church, as far as the IRS is concerned, they have to have a distinct legal existence. You know when the church began? It began in the mind of God before the foundations of the world. But you can't be that kind of a church in America today. Number 2, you must have a recognized creed and form of worship. In other words, your creed, your doctrine, and form of worship must be recognized or approved by the IRS. It certainly cannot include partisan politics. You must be totally neutral in your preaching on the great issues of the day. Number 3, it must have a definite and distinct ecclesiastical government. That means that they only recognize hierarchical church government. They will not recognize a church that is under the pastoral authority of a pastor, an under-shepherd, under the shepherd, the Lord Jesus Christ. That's Catholic doctrine. That's where that comes from. That's Catholic and Protestant doctrine. The only kind of a church that's going to qualify in America is a Catholic church, a Protestant church that came out, one of the little harlots that came out of the old whore. Number 4, it must have a formal code of doctrine and discipline approved by the IRS. It must have a distinct religious history. In other words, it must be a denominational church. It cannot be an autonomous, independent, Bible-believing Baptist church. Number 6, it is an organization of ordained ministers, which means that this demands that the church is an organization and not an organism. Isn't it interesting? Charles Haddon Spurgeon was never ordained. Dr. G.B. Vick, pastor of the Great Temple Baptist Church in Detroit, was never ordained.